It says it's live streaming.
It is. I lied about the voice.
Okay, good. So we're all set, I think.
All right, should I get things started? Okay, well, I will call the September North Liberty Community Library Board of Trustees meeting to order. Gavel. Okay, any additions or changes to the agenda? I'm seeing all shaking and thumbs down, thank you. We have no public to comment. And did everyone get a chance to look over the August minutes? Okay, were there any changes or issues with those? Would anyone like to make a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Excellent. We will approve the minutes. And then, let's see. So, Jenny, you had emailed about doing a presentation instead of a staff introduction. Is that right?
Yes, and we can do that now, or we can flip it and do it after reports. It's completely up to you guys. Chris is not in. She's trying, she says.
Okay, well then maybe let's start with the reports, and then we can, hopefully she'll be able to make it in before the presentation. So we don't have staff introduction, but we'll go on to budget, friends, director, or do we have any questions about staff reports? Let's flip it that way. Oh, okay, looks good. And Jenny, do you want to take over about the budget and etc.?
Yes, we just finally, I've included the expenditure report for last year. We finally got the closeout for last year, so you should have seen that. We were sitting very well at the end of the year. I'm still trying to navigate these reports and learn how to read everything on them. And Tracy is too, so we're all being sort of patient with each other and learning as we go. We have some training coming up here again because we're starting a new budget year and we don't know how to submit our budget proposals yet. So that'll be coming up shortly. But otherwise, it just, I mean, if you guys have any questions, we are sitting about where we should be currently with this budget. I'm scrolling through to get to my actual report. While like repair and maintenance and utilities is high, like 34%, that's because, again, we pay all these upfront costs for Polaris and other things. Commodities is a little high because like our ebooks is all encumbered funds. They're already all sent out, you know, $20,000 plus and different things like that. But we are sitting pretty well despite that with our budget. Again, we do not have access to the employee side of things. We just trust that Tracy has put those numbers in correctly. As we can see, last year went well. We're going to be in the same boat, I'm sure, because we're not scheduling our part-timers particularly full as much as we could, all the full hours that we have them for. We just don't have the demand right now. It's increasing slowly. We're seeing it start up, and our circulation is doing well. You'll see from Andrew's report that our circulation is coming back pretty quickly and bouncing back. But as far as needing like high traffic, I noticed tonight we had quite a few cars when I pulled in, and there were a few people in here working and milling around. But it's certainly nothing like we saw like last summer. This summer was quite different. Usually by the end of July, we're all ready for a break and ready for the kids to go back to school and kind of give a big sigh that we can have a little downtime, but then we miss them after they go back. But this year it's just sort of steady and we're not seeing that craziness that we normally see. So does anyone have questions about anything from the budget numbers or anything that looks weird or? All right. We are doing our annual report right now, so I'm going to have to sit down with Tracy to have her help me understand some of the numbers from last year to make sure that I report everything correctly to the state. So we're working on that now. Andrew's working through his piece of it, and then I have to do my piece, which is more staffing and salaries and budgetary work. It's lovely that he shares that with me now and helps me do some of those things and navigate through it. So that is where we are with that. And then I didn't know do you want me to say anything about friends, or do you want me just to hop into my report?
I think you could just go into your report then.
Okay, yeah, the Friends notes are in there. We just had our first meeting for the first time in forever. As you can see, they are supportive as always. So we are back to fully staffed again. It's not that I don't want people to succeed and do really well, but it would be really great if they weren't so good that they were getting other jobs really fast. No, the people that we've lost to full-time jobs and other higher paying jobs or whatever. So I celebrate that for them. Makes it a little challenging for us, but that's the way it works. We did have a lot of high schoolers apply this time, and we talked that through and decided to kind of revise our model for hiring. So we hired 2 high school seniors, one from Liberty High and one from Solon, and they have both started training and are learning very quickly. We're using a slightly different training model with them. Kelly's doing a lot more hands-on training with this group of folks. The other one, Leonard Riker, is somebody who came to us he actually works at Ely and Swisher, 2 different libraries. So I think maybe he's on the board of Swisher and he works at Ely. I might have had that wrong in the order part. I know I haven't had a chance to sit down with them yet. We always, when new staff start, we always have them sit down individually with each full-time staff person, just to give them a chance to get to know us and what we do for our jobs and kind of how the library operates overall. So I have not done that yet with those two. Their schedules are a little bit wonky, especially the students. They're not coming in until a little bit later, where Leonard will be working some day shifts once he's trained. So Kelly is definitely adjusting her schedule to work with them, and it's been interesting to get them trained, but they're doing really well. So they're in their second week of training, all 3 of them. And then just community update. Chris and I volunteered last week. They had League of Cities had their meeting in Coralville. So they did a bike ride this year. Ryan actually rode a bike, which he told me he never rides anything that doesn't have a motor attached to it. So I really enjoyed seeing him on that bike ride. He did really well. But they came through Centennial Park, and we met them with water and Gatorade and snacks. And it was a lot of fun. We had 5 of us. Matt Messick from the rec dressed up as it looked like he was wearing a half alien, half human suit. So it looked like an alien stealing a child. And he was the child with his big bald head. So it was quite humorous, just for fun. I don't know what the writers thought of him, but it was pretty amusing for us, entertaining. There were a lot of those black no-see-um gnats, those horrible gnats. I got bit about a dozen times. It was terrible. But other than that, it was a pleasure to have them come through North Liberty and see some of our sites. And then other than that, I just mentioned that I am running for 2 different board positions, new board positions. I'm not quite sure why I did that, but I'm excited about both. I've served on the board for ARSL, so this is just, they asked me if I would run for president. So I decided that it would be an okay time to do that this year, as I'm not president of the local city of literature anymore. I think I can handle that. And then executive board of ILA, and they only meet like quarterly. So it's not a huge high demand thing where I'll be running ragged. And especially now when we're learning how easy Zoom is for meetings, and most of the board meetings are Zoom. There'll be, if I did get the president position, if I was elected the president for ARSL, there would be a little bit of travel involved. ARSL pays for that, things like advocating in Washington potentially, and doing some other meetings, a meeting in Colorado and things like that, but not a great deal. So I'm pretty excited about it, actually. And then we just have the staff reports, and I think you already kind of asked everybody if they had questions. I did want to just point out Andrew's reports on the collection, because I thought that was really interesting. Just showing the recovery of the circulation and how we're doing since things have gone. And then he is working with but he didn't have this in there, but the digital magazines and where we are now, seeing that spike. The digital magazines have moved over to Overdrive. So if you don't use Overdrive or the ebooks, they're all very prevalent and front and center on there. It's really nice. They're very easy to find. And I think that's part of the reason they're spiking so much. And then we just found out that Canopy, which is our streaming video service, has also been purchased by Overdrive. So apparently they are going to monopolize everything. It's great for us, especially with Canopy, although I'm a little concerned about the popularity of that boosting too much because it is a pay per view. We can set where, how, the standards and where we limit it, but I don't want to try to dial back too much and limit people more if I don't have to. So we'll just have to look at what that looks like in a couple months and hope that we can adjust the budget accordingly for that. But that is all that I have there. And then the next thing is just collection development policy.
Did everyone get a chance to look over the collection development policy we have in place? Okay. Anyone see any errors or have any concerns or changes to be made?
We did not hear on our end. So if nobody else does, I do want to talk a little bit about the policies in general, but we can do that after if you guys want to talk more about the collection development or vote on that going on as is for now.
Yeah, that goes with the reconsideration of materials request form is kind of encompassed in that. So no issues with that either. Okay, does anyone want to make a motion to approve it for another year?
I'll make a motion to approve it for another year.
Thank you, Heidi.
I can second that.
Thanks, Laura. All right, so that is moved and will be in place for another year. And of course, we can revisit if something does come up, Jenny.
And Chris is on now, just an FYI. She's here with us. Well, the only thing I really wanted to talk about, and I mentioned it briefly, I think last time, but I'm not 100% sure. The Association for Old and Small Libraries had contacted me and asked me if I would do a presentation on policy development at conference. And my idea was then to recruit a couple of our staff to do that with me. This time I've done a couple different policy, one for ARSL, but it's been a few years ago. So I talked with Emily and kind of fleshed out this idea, and then we also asked Kelly, since she's going to be there and does public service side of things, to present with us as well. So we are presenting on equity and inclusion in our policies. And what that has kind of spurred for us is a review. We're going to try to set a committee to review all of our policies for inclusive language and ensuring that we are not only being a welcoming place, but also that people are invited to the table. So it's sort of interesting how it works. It's just making sure that our language is accessible for everyone and that people are feeling that they're a part of the decision-making if they would like to be. We've talked about a lot of different pieces of that and what that can look like. Part of that is what you guys do as representatives of the community, but then just making sure that not just saying, we welcome you all here, but you belong here. So in doing that, and it's not our privilege necessarily to say to people you belong here, but it's their privilege to belong. It's their right to belong here. So we're talking about what that can look like, and what we'd like to do is go ahead and we're developing our process and our program for conference, and then we're planning to establish a committee. And if anybody's interested in reading every policy and helping us with that, please feel free. Right now, we're all doing research and reading and finding out a lot of things about neutrality, and libraries really aren't necessarily neutral places. What we should be doing is supporting freedom and the right to access information and all the things. So we're looking at it from that viewpoint. And I'm super excited about it. It'll be sort of like when I first started as the director, I revamped every single policy. So doing that sort of again, but looking at it from a different vantage point and a different scope. So that is just something I wanted to let you guys know that I was hoping to be working on if you guys are approving of that and okay with it. And then we would just kind of present it all at once, sort of with that in mind, depending on how we decide to go about it. Is there any questions about that? All right. All right, so if you guys are okay with it, I have a presentation. I was hoping to do this in person, and since that didn't happen last time, I decided I'll just go for it and do it this way. This is actually a presentation that I gave. I'm going to pare it way down, so you're not going to have to sit here for an hour and listen to me drone. But it's a presentation that I gave to librarians at the Rural Library Summit, which was held by the Association for, I'm sorry, the American Library Association. I was contacted by one of the board members from ARSL and asked to do a presentation. They didn't give me a heck of a lot of time to put it together. Basically just asked me to do something and told me basics of what they wanted. So, but what I think is interesting is this has been coming up more and more, as you all have probably heard the word resilience recently. As I was developing this presentation about resilience, what I realized is libraries did really well. While it was stressful, we did really well during the pandemic because we are so used to being resilient. Not just now, but we've always had to be resilient in so many ways because we change all the time and we have to adapt to new things and new demands. And I think just across the board, people did really well and were really resilient, but I was just going to give you a little focus on what we have done. And then I am going to try to flip this because it's written in a way that's supposed to be presented. Sorry, I have to figure out how to make it see it so that I can see the darn slideshow. So give me just a second here. There we go. Okay, so now I can see it too. It's written as I'm talking to librarians, but I'm going to try to flip this so that I'm talking to you guys too. So bear with me. I only have 9 slides. I am not a slide person. So I will go through this and you guys feel free to chime in or stop me if you want to at all. So libraries, as we know, have been more and more involved in social service work, social services. We are going on our third intern, our third social worker intern right now. She is helping us with grant writing and doing a lovely job going through. She's already submitted a grant and is planning on looking for more and doing research. And it's wonderful. But we know as librarians that we experience secondary trauma a lot in our work that we do. And so by empowering our staff and just trying to find ways to work really smart and be empathetic and offering training all the time is what I think has happened for us, what made it a little bit easier for us in some ways to adapt and change with the pandemic. I love the idea of bounce and that we bounced back pretty quickly and rebounded easily. As well as anybody could. I still think we had a lot of, I think that secondary trauma was probably the hardest thing. I think a lot of librarians, as I mentioned before, it's just so counterintuitive for us to be closed. So a lot of us took that to heart really hard. And I had some friends really struggle over the last year. But the thing that I really wanted to get across is that really I'm not offering anything magical, just maybe some peace of mind that we got this. We know what we're doing, and we're going to continue to do what we need. 2020 was really hard for all of us, and navigating that hard times is something that I think we're just historically familiar with. We offer shelter in literal storms here. We assist people in workforce development and job skills. We do, as you guys know, pretty much anything that people need, we try to offer it to them. In fact, tonight, just as an aside, my daughter-in-law just texted me and said, "Hey, does the library check out laptops?" And I thought she was at my library because she said, "Well, there's a lady here giving the librarian a really hard time because she wants to take a laptop out." She was actually at the Kirkwood Library, not our library. I went out to see if she was out there and she wasn't. And I came back and she said, no, I'm at Kirkwood. I just was going to send her to you guys if you could check one out to her. So I was like, well, actually, we're working on that. We hope to, but we don't right now. So just how we pivot our services and what we do to make ends meet. It's just something that we've always done. So in all of this, I just think that we might have lost sight with the fact that it's this whole last year was just a bigger scale for us than what that we do all the time. Service changing, during the last year, our library was, I don't want to talk about that. You guys know what we did. And that's what I did here, but just over the last year, all the things that we did to make sure that people had access to us in their homes, and throughout the community, the phone calls we made to people, and instead, just like talking about connecting with our public health folks and other invited to, business people and other things, just to make sure that we were connecting with all the people that might need us. And what I really liked is that Ryan called and told me that he had heard accolades about the library from some business folks in the community and our expertise. And he called to share that praise with me, and it felt really good to hear that. We don't do this for recognition, but it sure is nice to be noticed for the things that we do. So I did say I don't do a lot of slides, so you'll just see, I put up slides just so people don't have to just stare at my face. And this is just like, the things we did over the last year, just reinventing our services, sustaining our partnerships, trying to forge new partnerships, and just being as resilient as possible and courageous as we could be throughout this year. All the things that each one of you likely did in your own lives all the time, developing new workflow and those things. And then when I was polishing the presentation, we were just talking about reinventing and reimagining, and this is the wrong slide deck, you guys. But I just have to skip a few slides. I had two different versions of this because I gave it to two different groups. I actually am going to try to find the other slide deck while I continue talking, because I really wanted to talk to you guys about some history stuff that I had done. I'm so sorry. Darn it. They're very similar and they have the same name title. So the other one has this really cool history about libraries, though, that I wanted to share because it's awesome. So I just have to dig back through for a minute if you bear with me. I just saw it. Oh, there it is. There we go. We're going to try this one instead. All right. So we'll try this again. This was Thrive. This was the one I wanted. And that's the one. So we're talking about thriving during hard times. And so this is just the history. I love this quote. It's talking about libraries way back in the early 1900s during the pandemic then, and how the Red Cross utilized libraries to do their work. It's super amazing. It's basically the same thing. Libraries joined forces with the Red Cross in local efforts to combat the influenza pandemic. The Red Cross used places to organize distribution of public health literature, prevention and treatment. So they had people sewing masks in the library, just all the things, the similarities. It's crazy how we did that. And so this talks about just how in the past year, how this is a quote that I found. I'm just trying to move along since I gave you guys the wrong slides here. So this quote, I just felt like so talked about what we do. This past year has been a veritable hotbed of trauma for so many of us. Children stuck at home in not so great environments surely had a rough pandemic across the board. 2020 highlighted major political and social unrest as well. On a micro scale, my town has suffered through massive wildfires and deadly school shooting in late 2019. We entered COVID with many unhealed wounds. Nationally and globally, the picture is not any better. We are surrounded by trauma and the traumatized. There has got to be a way for libraries to respond. We specialize in the stuff of resilience, language-rich stories, access to information, safety, community support, opportunities for family bonding, and chances at self-discovery and growth. Surely these can be applied directly to those who have suffered greatly in our midst. I thought that was just like amazing when I read it, and exactly what along the lines of what I was thinking as I was preparing for this. So here we get back just to like, this is the same, just what I had on the other one, and just reinventing and what we did throughout the pandemic. This was just a little list. And then when we did this, I actually talked with the folks about the things that they were doing in their libraries as well. And just expanding services and how that's going to look going forward. What things are we keeping? You know, we're keeping our lockers. We're still doing curbside. We do more printing for people who just stop by and say, hey, I have prints to pick up. And they love this service. There are people who come in sometimes 3 days a week to get printouts. And I know you guys know we don't charge for the first 30 pages now, or $3 worth. We are in the process of getting new copiers, which I would have told you about next month, but I'll just mention briefly that we'll have color option and we'll charge probably 50 cents for those. So it'll still be $3. So I'll still be able to get $3 worth of printing if they do color versus black and white. But just all the things that we're going to continue to do, bringing the new benches in to continue with that outdoor charging opportunities. Amy is still helping people with rent and utility assistance. And in fact, one of the grant applications that we're working on, we're hoping to get will help feed some families who need rent and utility assistance by providing some food vouchers to those folks that they can pick up at the library. Just basically, they just needed to let us know that they have a need. So just the things we'll continue to try to do, and knowing that people are in need right now, and how can we be a connection for those resources. So all the things that we did and are doing are about connection to me. Really, if I had to pick one word for libraries and what we stand for, I think connection is one of my favorite words. So this slide is just full of images of people gathering before. They just make my heart so happy. It makes me feel so good to see them. And at the same time, it gives me a little bit of palpitations here from seeing people all gathered without their masks on. But what else do we see when we look at the pictures here? We see inclusion, diversity, equity, accessibility, and community. So that is the soul of what our work is. And most of us, these are all common terms that we hear all the time in society, and we've been doing it. This has just always been what we do at libraries. Most of us can't even imagine a library that isn't inclusive or doesn't welcome people. But what we're finding through this, looking at this equity and inclusion in the policy work, is that there's two different levels. The level of diversity is more like that surface level, and the inclusion is what's underneath. And that's where we need to continue to do work and expand, I think. So we continue to celebrate the things that we are doing, but then can always looking to add to it and make sure that our capacity isn't changing. So today, or last week, or the week before, this is what we do now. A lot of what we do now. I just love having our llama in the Zoom meeting, and we did have the llamas come visit us outdoors a few months ago. And then just the work that we can do we have Matilda doing the rec kids, the rec after school kids built her a nice fast thing. She had to run through a whole maze of things, and that was at the very beginning of COVID, when we didn't know so much about what we could and couldn't do. A lot of these are from early in COVID. Erin giving one of the first programs she did, the yoga program with the kiddos. So it's just different than it was now. And I would say inspiration is the best word to describe this, because it describes what we do all the time, and what our staff is doing constantly is finding new ways to, I just felt like our staff this last year had a nearly limitless capacity to rethink and reinvent. And they did it all the while, just in a few days, trying to change their services and reinvent and revamp them. And then they did it again. We just kept doing it and kept talking about it, as I'm sure all of you are familiar with these things in your own daily work and the things that you're doing in your lives or your families are doing. The programming, you know, where Emily down in the corner at the bottom is inviting people into her home to do story time while she was at home with her kiddos. And they were doing Fortnite with the kids, so they built their own fort at home, and she did that. And then, you know, we had the two staff people who worked as teachers at the Rexter program during this time. And just all the different things. Kelly's live segment, her new live that she's still doing, Love, Light, and Lit, and that she's now added a blog to as well. And she is bringing in some fantastic guests. I am so impressed with her guests. If you guys haven't had a chance to listen to some of her podcasts, they're fantastic. I just sit and listen to them while I work after she releases a new one. So if what we do is connect, this slide shows who does that, the humans who work here. The humans who work in our libraries every day that make all this happen. I think about us as the glue in our communities and the communities we serve. We're flexible, we're innovative. Sometimes we're too generous. We try really hard to give everything to everyone, and sometimes that can be exhausting. I try to tell new librarians, do what your capacity will allow you to do, and don't do so much that you burn yourself out. That's been a big thing for all of us. As you guys know, this year is just burnout has been high for everyone across the board, I think, across all industries. But I think that these traits are just hardwired into our team. And when they're given that positive work environment and the freedom to just make these changes and do flexible things, they get awesome results. I do joke around about being just the director and being in my office, because I tell you truthfully that sometimes they are doing amazing things that I don't even know that there is happening out there. I ask them things and they're like, I just brought up Hispanic Heritage Month, or this month is, Latin Heritage Month, and said, we need to make sure we keep that in mind for next year. And they listed the 5 things they're doing this year that I didn't even know they were doing. So there you have it. They did not, to my defense, they did not bring it up at staff meeting, because I said, did I miss this? And they said, no. Usually that's my chance to hear all the cool things that they've added, but there you go. And then this is Danny, who some of you may have met if you come in the library. She is Melanie's marketing assistant. They are doing big things. If you don't have a TikTok, I guarantee you, if you get a TikTok, they will definitely entertain you on TikTok. So this is just talking about like this quote. I just love this quote. If you haven't watched Margaret Heffernan, if you like TED Talks, she is fabulous. She's got multiple TED Talks that I absolutely love. But she just talks about preparedness, coalition building, imagination, experiments, bravery. In an unpredictable age, these are tremendous sources of resilience and strength. She is not a librarian. She's a businesswoman, but she's a very cool lady. I highly recommend her. But I think what this just is about is how we're frugal, we're resilient. We just are change agents. We do what we need to do to make changes happen. And because we're dynamic, we can't always predict what's going to happen, but we're always pretty well prepared when things don't go the way we want them to go. And then I just shared our annual report, because I was really proud of our annual report this year. It was really hard to do an annual report when we didn't, usually they're about reflecting on what we've done really well and all the big numbers and sharing those. So looking at how we could do those big numbers, this is our pandemic story this year. This is the story of what we did and how we've been rethinking our work to deliver the services and programs we've been doing. And if you think about it, this is what we've always been doing. It's the same thing. It's just on a little lesser scale now, or on a different scale now. So that is my spiel. We talked a little bit about what we are continuing to do during our thing. And then I just said to everyone, as I would say to all of you, continue to give yourself grace, give your coworkers grace, promote self-care, keep what's good and let go of the stuff that's not working. And know that we'll all continue to thrive across our industries and we'll adapt despite the obstacles and despite pandemics. And that is what I have for you tonight. Anyone have questions, comments, anything? Since I've been yapping at you for the last 20 minutes or whatever it was. Sorry for my.
So Jenny, can you, who was your audience for that presentation?
So I did this for two different audiences. One was it's called Realm, and Realm is the Web Junction is a training website for librarians, and they do, and then OCLC is the big shared collection of materials that people access. And so I spoke to the Realm group, which the Realm project was helping libraries across the country to prepare to reopen after the pandemic. And this was just, she asked me to do something just on what our library experienced over the last year and what was going to come forward. And what we really wanted to do was just assure people that they could do it. It's okay. We have this. We can continue on. We will survive through this, as we have many, many things. And then this one specifically, this with the green slides, was for the Rural Libraries Summit, which was done by American Library Association as they try to connect more with smaller rural libraries. Because if you know the American Library Association has always been, it's a very big group. There's 8,000 plus. I don't even know how many librarians are in it. It's probably a lot more than that. Even just in the Public Library Association is 6,400 members. So it's thousands and thousands of people. And when they come together for a conference, it's thousands of people coming together for these huge conferences. And it's a little bit intimidating and overwhelming, particularly if you're in a smaller library setting. So they are really paying attention to what we're doing at the Association for Rural and Small Libraries. They are connecting with us and asking to partner with us because they want to reach our librarians that we have in our group. I think it's going to be a tough sell for some of them because they're just too small and they can't afford the dues of the association. We have 3 people, Jen and myself and Aaron are all part of the American Library Association for different reasons, but and this is the first time I've been a member of it 3 different times, and this is the first time I've found value. And I think it's because as we grow as a library, I'm learning a little bit more about what I can do to make myself get value out of it, where before I felt like they just didn't connect with smaller libraries.
So as you've gone through preparing for those presentations and as you're anticipating going through policy review and everything, what things from this past year are going to stand forth in the new North Liberty Library as opposed to what it was before the COVID events? How is the library going to look different?
Well, I think we'll continue. We don't have a lot of curbside. I think people are wanting to come in. We thought we'd continue to have a lot more curbside requests, but we don't. We have a few per week, and we are still filling those. And then the lockers are still being utilized a little bit, not nearly as much as they were. I think in different seasons, we'll see them used more as people, when they are in different seasons, people get busy or they don't have time to get here before we close or it's getting dark. Different reasons they'll find to want to use the lockers more often than not, but we'll continue to offer them. And then I think the other thing we're seeing is more outreach. So we're going out into the community more and doing things away from the library. One of the things that Aaron and Kayla have noticed in youth and teen services is that the kids are trickling back in, but they're not coming like they used to. You know, we used to look forward to after school having a library full of loud, noisy kids, and we love it. We love it as much as we sometimes are like, oh, but they are not seeing it. And what they've been doing is connecting with United Action for Youth, meeting with them, some of their folks, and then they found that apparently the new hangout is Hy-Vee because it's down the street from North Central. It's walkable. They can get Starbucks. We don't really know. We're seeing, it's been funny because this week there's been a little bit of a spike, or last week there was a little bit of a spike. We were seeing some more kiddos that we hadn't seen for quite a while. I think they just sort of forgot us when they couldn't come here. So it's getting them back. So Aaron and Kayla have actually been talking about taking some road trips to Hy-Vee to do some Talking Pony shows at Hy-Vee for the kids, to Pied Piper them back to the library. We're still doing snack every day and getting stuff from table to table for our snacks. And we'll continue to offer those programs as much as possible. And then I think the other thing we're going to see is just a hybrid model for programming. We purchased an owl, a meeting owl, which sits in the room and scans to the people who talk, so that we can have a Zoom and live model combined. We did that with our community engagement event. It worked really well, and Emily's been using it for some of the story times. I think we had 8 come in on Zoom for the community engagement, and we had about 10 in the audience, or 12. So it's about equal measure for that. And we'll continue to offer that. We had one lady, like I mentioned last year, we had somebody from England stay up to watch one of our programs, our gardening program. So I think we'll see those things too, reaching audiences that we might not reach otherwise, if we're still offering the things. And I think we'll see some continued spike in electronic use. It's kind of tapering off a little bit. The ebooks had spiked way up last year, and it's sort of leveling off a little bit. I'll tell you, our circulation, I can tell from just the carts coming in and out, and Andrew's numbers that he's sharing, that we're seeing a nice steady increase back up in circulation. I was just on the desk for an hour today, and it was just a pleasure to see the different groups of people coming in, and junior high kids dropping their books off, and stacks of books, and folks checking out big piles of DVDs. So they're coming back steadily, but we miss the busy crowd like we usually used to have. It's not quite the same, but hopefully soon. I think just offering services however they need them is going to be the big thing we're going to shift. We're going to see in what we've already kind of been doing, but continuing to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No. Well, that's all I got for you. I will note in our on my just the summer reading program numbers, if you saw those, it wasn't as big as always. I think I just closed my board report stuff up by accident. Let's see if I can get it open again. Anyway, you hopefully saw the summer reading program numbers that were listed there, and the number of folks that were able to the ice cream, pictures of the ice cream that I gave to the city council. And then the other thing that was really exciting was the museum that Amy had. This last month we had about 46 go through there, which was awesome. I got here too late. I was out of town, and I got back just too late to get in there in time. I was bummed. So and then I did include the diversity stuff again at the bottom of the thing, so you guys could see the August numbers. We're really excited about the diversity audit that they're doing. They're now looking at what they're going to do with the adult piece of it, and most of it will transition over the things that we're doing in the kids, but it'll change somewhat for the adults. We are training all of our part-timers to help with the diversity audit, because as we know that we're touching every single one of the books, and we want to make sure that we're covering the whole gamut. But we're really excited about that. And then just the adventure passes is the other one that we're super excited about. I just think we're going to continue to see community engagement options, and that social service aspect is going to be big, Mike, in promoting how we help folks with whatever their needs are with things like that. A lot of that stuff, like Amy working on that rent and utility assistance, it's hard. Amy was struggling. She's learned all this stuff. I had hoped to be trained in it. They were going to set up some training and it just never happened. So she has been doing all of it and she's been doing an excellent job. We actually have had our social work student has actually helped a few people too when Amy was out of the office for a while. So she's been able to assist some folks too. So that's been good. And that is all I have for you guys tonight.
All right. Does anybody have any old business to bring up? No. Any new business? No. All right, then that's all that is on the agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn this month's meeting?
I so move.
Thanks, Mike.
A second.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, well, we are adjourned for our September meeting. Next meeting date is October 18th at 6:30 p.m.
Awesome. Thank you all. Oh, and you know what? I am out of town at that meeting. I almost forgot because that's ARSL week.
All right, do you want to start an email thread so we can pick a different date that works for everyone?
Yep, I'll
Alright,
check
well-
with the powers that be and make sure we can find an open date.
All right, well, we'll wait to hear from you once you speak with the higher ups. So never mind on the meeting date, it is to be determined. Thanks for figuring that out ahead of time. And we will all talk soon then.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, have a great month.
Thank you, Derek.
Aye.